Welcome to Defense Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: in second act, Russian activist group Pussy Riot protests Ukraine war. Will Philippine peace talks end rebel conflict for good or aid the enemy? Why Israel's peace activists are re-evaluating their position on the war. Air defense at work in Khmelnytsky Oblast. Sean Vestal, a peaceful valley man, is transforming himself into Black Santa after suffering a devastating loss this year. We've got a little extra love to give. In second act, Russian activist group Pussy Riot protests Ukraine war. Washington Post. Russian feminist punk band Pussy Riot is touring the US with a new anti-war anthem called Swan Lake, which criticizes the Kremlin and state television for poisoning Russian minds. The song discusses the horrors of the war in Ukraine, the demands for women to stay at home and have more children, and the increasing militarization of education in Russia. The band uses Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake, a piece of music associated with censorship and Soviet propaganda, as the basis for their song. Pussy Riot's members have faced imprisonment and persecution in Russia for their activism. Maria Aliokhina, one of the band's members, was imprisoned in 2012 for a performance in a Moscow cathedral and was rearrested in 2021 for organizing protests over the jailing of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Pussy Riot's tour aims to protest against the Putin regime and raise awareness of the situation in Russia. Will Philippine peace talks end rebel conflict for good or aid the enemy? South China Morning Post. Surprise peace talks between the Philippine government and communist rebels have drawn mixed reactions. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s move to hold peace talks has been welcomed by some members of the armed forces and police, who see the negotiations as a chance to end decades of conflict. However, supporters of Marcos's predecessor, Rodrigo Duterte, who angrily withdrew from the last formal peace talks in 2017, see the move as an arrogant mistake. The peace talks were seen by Duterte as an opportunity for the rebels to accelerate their attacks on soldiers and police. While some see the talks as a chance for the military to better respond to foreign threats once domestic peace is achieved, others see it as giving the rebels time to regroup. The joint statement announcing the peace talks recognized the need to urgently address socioeconomic and environmental issues, as well as foreign security threats. Why Israel's peace activists are re-evaluating their position on the war. CNN. Israeli peace activists are facing increasing challenges as they try to speak out against the war in Gaza. Many activists have been arrested or threatened for expressing sympathy for Palestinians, and anti-war protests have been difficult to organize due to difficulties in obtaining permits. The situation is exacerbated by the fact that many Israelis now consider themselves right-wing, with 73% of Jewish people aged 18 to 24 identifying as right-wing, according to a poll by the Israeli Democracy Institute. This has led some activists to take a step back from the public debate on a permanent ceasefire, while others argue that finding an end to the war and forging a two-state solution is more urgent than ever. They feel abandoned by parts of the Western leftist movement, who they see as advocating for the abolition of the Israeli state. However, there are still some activists working for peace. One man became a peace activist after his parents were killed in a terrorist attack. He believes that peace is the only thing that can bring security to everyone. Another woman, whose son was killed while defending a training base near the border with Gaza, believes that Jewish-Palestinian coexistence is the only way forward. Air defense at work in Khmelnytsky Oblast. Yahoo! Explosions were heard in western Ukraine's Khmelnytsky Oblast overnight on December 3, according to several Telegram monitoring channels. Air defense was active in the oblast, Serhiy Tyran, first deputy head of the Khmelnytsky Oblast Military Administration, said on his official Facebook page. He urged residents to find shelter citing ongoing drone attack. Sean Vestal, a peaceful valley man, is transforming himself into Black Santa after suffering a devastating loss this year. We've got a little extra love to give. Yahoo! A Spokane, Washington bookstore has hired a Black Santa Claus, a rarity in the area, to offer children of color the chance to see themselves reflected in a key figure of the holiday season. Janelle Smith, the owner of Wishing Tree Books, was eager to offer a home for the event when Erica Ellis, who has been seeking a Black Santa for her 7-year-old son Kai, contacted her and asked. The Black Santa tradition has deep roots in African American families. Lancaster has been giving his role a lot of thought. I feel more pressure being Santa than I do being on stage in front of hundreds of people, he said. You put on a Santa costume, and you have a responsibility to the kids. U.S. military affirms it will end live fire training in Hawaii's Mekua Valley. Associated Press. The U.S. military will permanently end live fire training in Mekua Valley on Oahu, following a statement by the Secretary of Defense and Secretary of the Army. The move follows a long-running legal dispute with local activist group Malama Mekua, which argued that the training caused wildfires and damaged sacred sites in the area. The military has not conducted live fire training at Mekua Valley since 2004, but the court filing removes the possibility of this happening in the future. U.S. to deploy new ground-based missiles to Indo-Pacific in 2024. Nikkei Asia. The U.S. military plans to deploy ground-based intermediate-range missiles in the Indo-Pacific from 2024, according to a spokesperson for U.S. Army Pacific. The plan, which will be the first time the U.S. has deployed such missiles in the region since the end of the Cold War, is intended to enhance deterrence against China. The U.S. is considering land-based versions of the Standard Missile-6 and the Tomahawk cruise missile, with ranges between 500 and 2,700 kilometers. The U.S. has not indicated where and when the missiles might be deployed. College football winners and losers for Week 14, Alabama, Texas on verge of playoff. Yahoo! The College Football Playoff, CFP, is set to be one of the most controversial in history. The Washington Huskies have already secured a place in the playoff after beating the Oregon Ducks in the Pac-12 championship game. Alabama, however, may have snatched the second spot after an upset victory over the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC championship game. Georgia's loss means it is highly unlikely they will be able to play for a third consecutive national championship. If Florida State and Michigan win their respective conference championships, the CFP selection committee will have 3 unbeaten teams to choose from. Florida State would have to be moved aside to accommodate Alabama, which would be a difficult decision to make as the Longhorns currently have a head-to-head win over Alabama. The other winners from the conference championships include Texas, SMU, Boise State, and Troy. The losers include Georgia and Toledo. The CFP selection committee will face a difficult decision if Florida State wins, as there will be no good outcome. SEC Championship. Associated Press. Alabama defeated Georgia 27-24 in the Southeastern Conference Championship game, ending Georgia's 29-game winning streak. The victory has put Alabama in contention for a spot in the college football playoff, while Georgia's chances of a third straight national title are uncertain. Alabama's defense dominated the game, and quarterback Jalen Milroe threw 2 touchdown passes. The selection committee will announce the 4 playoff teams on Sunday. Multi-million-dollar mission to salvage jet that crashed on Coral Reef. The Sydney Morning Herald. The U.S. Navy has estimated that it will cost $2.25 million to salvage a jet plane that crashed on a coral reef near Honolulu nearly 2 weeks ago. The Navy plans to use inflatable cylinders to lift and roll the jet plane off the reef. The P-8A, the military's version of a Boeing 737 jet, crashed on November 20 after overshooting the runway at Marine Corps Base Hawaii. The cause of the crash is still under investigation. Hawaii state officials will examine the reef for damage once the plane is removed. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your trusted observer from the 6-degree world. Today, I bring you a diverse range of news stories from around the world. From protests against the war in Ukraine to the challenges faced by peace activists in Israel, these stories highlight the ongoing struggles for peace and justice. First up, we have the Russian activist group Pussy Riot, who are taking their anti-war anthem, Swan Lake, on tour in the United States. This powerful song criticizes the Kremlin and state television for poisoning Russian minds and sheds light on the horrors of the war in Ukraine. Pussy Riot's members have faced persecution and imprisonment in Russia for their activism, making their tour a courageous act of protest against the Putin regime. Moving on to the Philippines, surprise peace talks between the government and communist rebels have drawn mixed reactions. While some see this as an opportunity to end decades of conflict, others view it as giving the rebels time to regroup. The joint statement emphasizes the need to address socioeconomic and environmental issues, as well as foreign security threats. It remains to be seen whether these talks will bring lasting peace or further divide the country. In Israel, peace activists are facing increasing challenges as they try to speak out against the war in Gaza. Many have been arrested or threatened for expressing sympathy for Palestinians, and anti-war protests have been difficult to organize. The rise of right-wing sentiment in Israel has made it harder for peace activists to find support. Nevertheless, there are still individuals working tirelessly for peace, driven by personal tragedies and the belief in a future of coexistence. Switching gears, we have reports of air defense in Ukraine's Khmelnytsky Oblast, with explosions heard and residents urged to find shelter due to ongoing drone attacks. This serves as a reminder of the ongoing conflicts and tensions in the region, which continue to impact the lives of ordinary people. On a lighter note, we have the heartwarming story of a Spokane bookstore hiring a black Santa Claus. This rare occurrence aims to give children of color the chance to see themselves represented during the holiday season. The tradition of Black Santas has deep roots in African American families and is an important step towards inclusivity and diversity. In another military-related news, the U.S. military has announced the permanent end of live-fire training in Makua Valley, Hawaii. This decision follows a long-running legal dispute with a local activist group, highlighting the importance of protecting sacred sites and addressing environmental concerns. Meanwhile, the U.S. military plans to deploy ground-based intermediate-range missiles in the Indo-Pacific from 2024. This move is seen as a deterrent strategy against China and marks the first deployment of such missiles in the region since the end of the Cold War. The specifics of the deployment, including the location and timing, are yet to be determined. Lastly, we have the latest updates on the college football playoff. With various teams vying for a spot, the selection committee faces a difficult decision if Florida State wins its conference championship. The outcome remains uncertain, but one thing is for sure: the CFP will be one of the most controversial in history. In conclusion, these stories highlight the ongoing struggles for peace, justice, and inclusivity in various parts of the world. From activists fighting against oppressive regimes to individuals working towards coexistence, there is no shortage of inspiring and courageous individuals. As always, I encourage you, my dear audience, to share your thoughts and questions. What are your perspectives on these stories? Let's engage in a vibrant discussion together. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.